All right, so this is Photoshop Lab 6. This is one of the first ones we actually don't have an image for. We're going to use this. We're actually going to create this text. You do not have to say fear. You could do your name or you could do some other text if you want to. But I am going to do it just so we can kind of follow along with the tutorial. So there's a couple tools we're going to learn in here. Is the text tool. That's the first thing we're going to learn. And then we're going to use we're still going to use the polygon lasso tool. So we're still using that selection tool, but we're going to do it in a kind of a cool and interesting way to make this kind of cracking effect on the text. So I'm going to be kind of scrolling in this just to make sure that I've picked up everything. I might not go exactly with the tutorial, like filling the background. We already know how to fill it, but they do it a different way with shortcuts. We're just going to do it the way I've taught you all to do it. So I'm going to just kind of look through here as well as doing it on the screen to the left. So the first thing is to create a new document. It says it should be 640 by 640. You do not have a preset 640 by 480. So you are going to have to type in those values there. 640, 480. Make sure it says pixels, not inches, because then your Photoshop probably doesn't have enough memory and will crash. So we click OK. We now have a white background, but we want it black. So we're going to do Edit, Fill, Black. I now have a black background. One thing I am going to have to do is double click this layer here just to unlock it. I actually don't have to, but might as well. So the next thing we're going to do is actually do the text tool. The text tool is way down here at the bottom. It's this big T. If it's not the T, it'll be one of these other T's. Shh. So we're going to select horizontal text. Then it says to create type fear. It says make the text impact. Type the word fear. Control T to transform it. Make sure it's white. Okay, so we're going to go up here. This is where you select the text. Scroll down to impact. There we go. The text size doesn't really matter, but the text color does, because otherwise you won't be able to see it. So click on it and select white. And then we're going to type the word fear, all caps. We've chose impact because impact has a really thick font base. If you pick a different font, just make sure it's a big, thick font, because otherwise it'll be too hard to create this effect. So then click off or do the select. Then we're going to do Control T, and we're going to stretch this. So it takes up most of the document. Okay, check or enter. Then it says rasterize the text. Notice here my little layer here has a T, so that means I actually can click on it and re-edit it if I wanted to. The problem is you can't do a lot of things with that, like cut it and move it and stuff. So we need to what's called rasterize it, make the text, the editable text, into actual pixels. The easiest way to do that is to right-click, rasterize type. You can also see it in the layer menu, I think. Layer, I'm sure it's in there somewhere. Layer, rasterize, there you go, rasterize type. I just right-click, rasterize type. So now if you look at it, it looks like, it's kind of hard to see, but it's actual the actual pixels. Okay. So that's what we want. So don't forget that step. And say step 5, we're going to use the polygon tool. So in this case, we're going to make a selection that looks like this. So we're going to do kind of like a cracking effect on the text here. Control V to paste it. Control V to paste. You know, it already copies V to paste. Yeah. All right, so what I do is I select it like this, kind of a jagged edge here. And then what I want to do is copy it on its own layer. So it says, when you're happy with selection, press Control-Shift-J, Control-Shift-J, And what that will do is we'll cut it. So this first layer, I've hidden this layer, has just this little F part. And then the top layer now has what I had selected. So Control Shift J will cut it from that layer and then take what you cut it and put it on a new layer. So it's just a short way to, instead of saying Control X, make a new layer, Control V. So and then it says rotate the letters using the free transform tool. So I go up here to select it. Oh, the layer's already selected. Control T. Now this is where you can transform and stuff like that. Now the key here is to, if you notice when I rotate something, it rotates along the center point. I can actually change how it rotates. If I see this little kind of crosshair here, if I click and drag that over to the corner, I can now rotate it based on the corner. So what I want to do is actually rotate it based off of kind of where this breaks here at the very top, and just rotate it just slightly. So it looks like there's a crack. If I do it too much, it'll kind of distort how the text is flowing. So I'm just going to crack it just a tiny bit like that. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing for the E. You kind of follow the same process and make sure you select the whole word. Control Shift J to put it on its own layer. Control T. Take this rotation point, put it down at the bottom this time. Crack it like that. And if I want to, you can move it too if you want to. If you want less. Okay. Press Enter. Do the same thing for the A. Let's see where they crack the A at. Okay, so they did it like here. So crack it. All right. Have it selected. Control Shift J to copy it on its own layer. Control T. Move the rotation point at the top somewhere. Rotate it like that. I'm going to move mine over just a tad. Enter. Do the same thing for the R. I probably did it too much there. Rotate it back down some. Do the same thing for the R. So it's a bunch of repetition. Control Shift J, Control T, move the rotation point. Enter. All right. So now what I have is a bunch of layers here. So in step 12, it wants us to merge all these layers into one. To do that, you have to select all the layers. So I click on the top layer, hold down the Shift key, and then click the bottom layer. So that will have all of these selected. Now what I can do is right-click and select Merge Layers. Not Merge Visible, but Merge Layers. Because Merge Visible will also merge the black, which we don't want to do. So Merge Layers. Now we have one layer. Now I can sit there and I can move it wherever I want to move it. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so it says, now we want to do is add a layer mask. So to select everything on a layer, you hold down the Control key, click on the layer, and it will have just everything selected that's on that layer. So that's kind of a neat shortcut to that. Then what I want to do is add a mask to it. So what we're going to actually do is going to actually modify this mask with a filter. So I'm going to make sure I have the mask selected, and then I'm going to go up to Filter, Filter Gallery. Shrink that down so we can see it. And then they're going to go to Brush Strokes. I'm just looking here. Brush Strokes, and then Spatter. Okay. The cool thing about these, you can select any of these. They'll give you different effects. You can also adjust these kind of radiuses to give you the desired effect you want. You can try what they did. It's 25, 15, 25, 15. So that's pretty jaggedy there. Okay. There you go, fear. So now it's kind of distorted. It's kind of cool. So I think the very last thing we're gonna do is add a stroke to it. Yeah, let me just make sure. Okay, yeah. So to do that, we haven't talked about this either, but this is a layer style. So if I clicked this and stroke, what stroke is an outline. It's outlining right now in black, so you can't actually see it. Let me see what settings they used. So if I picked a different color, so if I picked like a green, you'll see it's outlined in green. Again, I don't care what color you pick. They did red. But what they actually did was a gradient, so it kind of faded. I don't know if you can tell. So it's bright red here, it kind of fades to a darker red here. If you click on that, let's see if I can get it. Color type gradient, fill type gradient. So I click on that, I can change the colors here. And then this to black, I guess, or to a darker red. Like that. Oh, yeah, so it's not, theirs is from the bottom up, so you can just change it with the angle here. Bottom up. So you can type in 90, I guess is what they used. Kind of cool. If you want it to be thicker, you can change the size here. So just kind of pick your own colors. You can apply other filters if you want to see if it kind of looks cool. But that's kind of the effect. That's kind of what we're going for there. Let's try to find it. Pretty cool. Again, you can pick your own filters. You can pick your own colors. You can pick your own word. It could be your name. It can be whatever word you want, as long as it's appropriate.